of diplomatic hand grenade from Donald Trump. He broke all the rules of international diplomacy. He refused to budge on tariffs. He refused to have a one-on-one meeting with Theresa May. I mean, does it really signify that we really don't matter to him very much at the moment?
I don't think so, and if you look back at the response to the nerve agent attack in Salisbury, you can see how, with the diplomatic support that we've got, that Theresa May, the Prime Minister, rallied, including the Americans, and actually when it really counts, we've got those strong ties that bind on security and other things. And of course, the Prime Minister has been over and met with Donald Trump on a number of occasions now, and we've talked about all the positive things that we have in common. Equally, when there's a necessity to say where we don't agree, I think the Prime Minister's got the resolve to do so. But obviously, I think at the moment, if you look at what happened over in Canada, we all ought to be saying, and the UK's got a very important voice, that free trade benefits everyone and protectionism hurts everyone. And I think that's the message from the UK.
He's certainly an unusual figure to deal with, Donald Trump. Boris Johnson was recorded leaked comments from Boris Johnson earlier this week saying that perhaps Theresa May could learn one of two things from Donald Trump's style of leadership. Maybe if he's in charge of Brexit, we'd be getting somewhere. Do you agree with this assessment?
No, I think that's silly, really. But look, all of these things, when you're at a private dinner, can get taken out of context, blown out of all proportion. I think the Prime Minister's got the right team, the right approach, and we're going up to the June Council, and where we're going to be discussing trade talks, which is crucially important for the UK, but also for the EU. And we need to be focused on the substance of that and getting the best deal for the whole country.
Now, I want to talk to you about the Grenfell Tower anniversary with your Housing Minister hat on. Now, that's going to be next week, a year on since that appalling fire that left those households homeless. The government said that it would rehouse permanently every single household within a year. So how many households are still waiting for help?
Look, first of all, it's going to be a very difficult time 1 year on from that appalling, unimaginable tragedy, and we need to stand in solidarity with the community, with the bereaved and with the survivors. In terms of the support that we're providing, we've got now all but 5 of the 203 households from the Tower and the Walk who have either moved into temporary or permanent accommodation or who've accepted a move. It hasn't happened quick enough, I'm the first to say it, and we're straining every sinew to provide the support and work with the community and work with the council, which is in the lead on this, to make it happen as soon as possible. But there has been
listening to what you're saying there.
We shouldn't lose sight of that.
I'm listening to what you're saying there, and you're talking about people who are in temporary housing, who have accepted offers. These are not people who have moved into permanent new homes, which is what the government promised. I mean, as Housing Minister, do you feel ashamed of that?
So I didn't catch that last question. There's hymns being played in the background here.
I'm saying that you're talking about people there who are in temporary housing and also people who have only accepted moves for permanent homes, not people who are in permanent new housing. So aren't you ashamed of that as Housing Minister?
Oh, I feel terrible for all aspects of what the community has been through, and it's crucial that we get as much support to them as possible. Of course, it's a challenge because the amount and the type of housing stock in the area is limited, and the council has bought, I think it's 300 or over 300 new properties, so there have been choices that have been given to all of the households. But you're right, I feel sorry for that community, and I'm very happy to apologise that we haven't done it quickly enough, but it's not right to say that there hasn't been important progress, and I'm confident that we can keep making progress. And of course those homes, once they've been purchased, need to be made, need to be renovated in some cases, and they need to be right for the individual households. Some of them have special needs or disabilities, and we need to get that right. But of course I want it done as soon as possible.
Let's talk about Brexit. The other, of course, a big challenge facing the government at the current time. And I went to Dover this week, and I have to say, what I found there made me feel a bit worried. The head of the Port of Dover saying, for example, that just a 2-minute extra time on lorries being checked and going through customs could lead to 17 miles of queues. I mean, are you worried about the lack of progress that's been made on Brexit?
Well, I think we've made important progress with the EU withdrawal bill that's gone through the Commons and now the Lords, and we've got it back to look at again in the Commons. On the diplomatic front, we got that first phase deal, important for securing the rights of EU nationals here, UK nationals on the continent, and we got the implementation period. So, of course, I want to see us get cracking, and that's what the June Council will allow us to do in terms of progressing to trade talks. So we've made important progress, but yes, we need to get on with this now. And what we're offering to the EU is the win-win of a free trade set of arrangements, which is good for them, good for us, particularly at this time, as we've been talking about, where there's protectionist noises coming from the US and other quarters, and we actually need to be standing up for free trade. And the worst thing now would be to see trade barriers go up between the UK and the EU. So that's the win-win we're looking for. And yes, we've got still some hard yards to go, but we have made important progress as well.
You talked there about the need to crack on. This is at a time when the Brexit Secretary was rumoured to be on the brink of resignation last week, when Boris Johnson's had yet more embarrassing comments leaked to the newspapers. Do you think we could do with a bit more cabinet discipline, a bit more people getting behind the Prime Minister?
Yes.
Very simple answer. What would you say to those slightly unruly colleagues of yours then?
Well, look, by the way, I spoke to David Davis last week. No discussion of resignations at all, just about the work and the progress we're doing towards that June Council with the EU. I think everyone needs to get behind the Prime Minister. I thought it was interesting reading Amber Rudd, former Home Secretary and Remain campaigner, teaming up with Ian Duncan-Smith, cabinet member, former cabinet member and Leave campaigner, and saying, look, this EU legislation that we're putting through and getting passed through the House of Commons again this week is crucially important, and we need a united front. We need to show as a government and also as a country that we're bigger than the sum of our parts, and I think we'll get that legislation through. I'm reasonably confident that we will do that, but we need to work together from backbenchers right the way through to the top team.
Now, we haven't got long left on the interview, but there is one more thing I'm quite keen to ask you. You're very loyal to Theresa May, though. I've been listening to what you've been saying. We've had a lot of cabinet resignations. You keep being touted for a top job, but you haven't quite made it into cabinet yet, have you? So what do you think Theresa May's got against you?
You know I'm not going to comment on that. Theresa May's the boss. She picks their top team. And you know what? I'm delighted to be working on the housing brief. We've got, last year we saw home ownership rise for the first time in 13 years. That's crucial for low and middle income families, for teachers, for nurses, for the next generation that want to get on the housing ladder. So I've got enough on my plate without worrying about all of that.
OK, thank you very much, Dominic.